He snuck the entire premium upgrade into the free version. And his little heist was about to cost him everything. Watch how I turned his theft into a masterclass in revenge. But this story starts with the quiet, the dead, heavy silence of a room where everything crucial just went terribly wrong. The first thing you have to understand about it is the quiet. Not the peaceful, misty morning quiet, but the dead, heavy, refrigerator humming quiet of a room where something crucial has just gone wrong. My room, which usually buzzes with the frantic energy of a dozen browser tabs fighting for attention, had gone silent. I was staring at the screen, and the silence was deafening. It felt like the moment right before a punch lands, that held breath, that taught anticipation. My company, Flux Flow, was everything. It was the brainchild of years of late nights fueled by bad instant coffee. The culmination of every awkward client pitch, every technical hurdle overcome. Every moment I almost wanted to throw my laptop across the room in frustration. We weren't some flashy, venture capital darling startup yet, but we were solid. We had a functional, profitable, beautifully designed SaaS product that helped small businesses manage their inventory and client workflows. It was reliable, it was elegant, it was mine, or at least it was ours, and I was the primary engine. The premium version, the one that unlocked the fancy forecasting models, the automated reporting dashboards, the integrations that made competitors look like glorified spreadsheets. That was the crown jewel. That's what we were about to launch. We had the marketing strategy mapped out, the press release drafted, the launch webinar scheduled for the following Tuesday. We were poised, just a few short weeks from making a serious dent in the crowded productivity software market. And then, I logged in that Monday morning. The first thing I noticed wasn't a technical glitch. It was a subtle shift in the user interface. A slight, almost imperceptible change in the color palette of the main dashboard. A typeface that felt just a fraction sharper than the one we'd settled on. It was the equivalent of hearing a single, perfectly tuned wrong note in a symphony. Annoying, but easily dismissed. Maybe a minor backend update. I clicked into the code repository, the main trunk of our application. My heart gave a little thump against my ribs. A nervous, little drumbeat against the oppressive quiet. I pulled the latest commit, and there it was. Not a modification, not a tweak. It was a complete, surgical insertion of code blocks that looked eerily familiar, yet felt alien. These weren't just small optimizations. These were feature additions that perfectly mirrored the next planned release. The premium features, already baked into the main branch. Someone hadn't just updated the code. They had essentially sneakily front-loaded the entire premium experience into the free tier. My breath hitched. I scrolled down, my fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. I traced the commit history, looking for the signature. The timestamp was recent, just a few hours before my login. The author listed was familiar, too familiar. It was Alex Chen, my co-founder. The guy who was supposed to be the visionary counterpart to my grinding technical execution. Alex, who was brilliant, charming, and possessed the uncanny ability to make even the most tedious API documentation sound like poetry. Alex, who had been shadowing me for the past 18 months, learning the intricacies of the core architecture, the little tricks of the database queries, the secret sauce of our proprietary scheduling algorithm. I remembered the arguments, the late nights when we'd been deep in the trenches sharing lukewarm pizza, debating the merits of asynchronous versus synchronous processing until 3 a.m. I remembered him asking the right questions, not the surface-level ones, but the deep, structural ones that only a genuine contributor would ask. He hadn't just been an advisor. He had been an apprentice who had become too comfortable, too confident, too close to the source code. The rage started as a slow, cold burn in my chest, like oil heating up on a stove. It wasn't the sudden, explosive heat of a fight, it was the deep, insidious heat of betrayal. I started cross-referencing the changes. The forecasting module, the one that took 3 weeks of dedicated backhand work to stabilize, had been implemented by Alex's commit. The advanced analytics widget, the one that required integrating a complex third-party charting library, his work. He hadn't just taken the code, he had refined it, polished it, and essentially claimed ownership of the most valuable assets before I even knew they were ready to be monetized. When we'd been discussing the launch strategy last week, he'd been so effusive. "Mark," he'd said, leaning over my shoulder, his eyes gleaming with manufactured enthusiasm, "this free tier is going to be a Trojan horse. Once they see the potential, they'll beg for the premium. We just need to make sure the premium feels utterly indispensable." Indispensable. He hadn't waited for the launch. He hadn't even waited for the marketing push. He had quietly, efficiently, and ruthlessly stolen the future, shoving it into the present. All under the guise of helpful collaboration. The escalation was immediate. The quiet anger turned into a hot, sharp demand for accountability. I leaned back in my chair, the worn mesh squeaking under my weight, and felt a strange, almost giddy rush of power. He thought he was brilliant. He thought he was clever. He thought he could pull this off without a trace, just a quiet, masterful heist. I opened our shared Slack channel. His name lit up the screen, followed by a breezy message: "Morning. Just pushed some final touches to the main branch. The reporting engine is singing today, Mark. Feels like we're days away from blowing up." Blowing up. He was setting the fuse, and he was standing right next to the dynamite. I didn't reply with a question. I didn't send a frustrated emoji. I didn't launch into the tirade I'd been rehearsing in my head for the last 3 hours. Instead, I replied with a single, precise sentence: "Alex, check the commit history for the primary features added in the last 72 hours. I think we just unlocked the premium tier for the entire free user base." The response was almost instantaneous. A pause, then a short, sharp burst of typing. "No way," he typed, then a longer pause. "Wait, let me see. Oh, wow, okay, that's aggressive." Aggressive. That was his word for it. Not genius, not foresight, not strategic dominance. Aggressive. He followed up with a slightly weaker attempt at recovery. "It's synergy, Mark. We're accelerating the value proposition. It's a marketing play. We just made the free version irresistible." "It's theft, Alex," I typed back, keeping my tone utterly level, the calm before the perfect, devastating storm. "You didn't accelerate the value proposition. You unilaterally claimed the high-value deliverables and embedded them in our entry point. You forced the entire funnel to bypass the premium gateway." Another pause. This one was heavier. The veneer of effortless collaboration was cracking, revealing the hungry, grasping ambition underneath. "Look, man, we're a team. We share everything. Why would you frame it like it's a hostile takeover?" "Because you didn't frame it like a shared enhancement," I countered. "You framed it like a brilliant, solitary stroke of genius that conveniently benefited you the most, positioning you as the indispensable visionary who saw the light before the rest of us did." The tension in the chat became palpable. The little pulsing dots indicated rapid, frantic typing. He was scrambling for the right narrative, the perfect deflection. "Fine," he finally conceded, the words sounding brittle, like dry leaves crunching underfoot. "It was me. I needed to prove it could be done. I needed to show you how it works." "And you succeeded," I said, a genuine, small smile finally touching the corner of my mouth. "You proved it, Alex. You proved you could steal it and make it look like genius." This was the turning point. The moment the rage shifted from burning frustration into focused, crystalline purpose. He wanted to prove his genius. He wanted to prove he could bypass the structure. Fine. I would give him a structure so magnificent, so overwhelmingly generous, that his clever little theft would look less like a brilliant move, and more like a petty, under-resourced afterthought. The problem with Alex is that he thinks the scarcity model is the key to monetization. He believes that by making the premium tier feel exclusive, he forces the user into a state of FOMO, fear of missing out, and thus into the subscription payment portal. He thinks the gating is the value. But the ultimate value isn't the gate, it's the experience. I leaned back again, the silence of the room rushing back in. But this time it felt charged, electric. I opened up the deployment pipeline monitor. The launch was still set for Tuesday, but the ground rules had fundamentally changed. My initial plan was simple revenge: publicly call him out during the launch presentation, detailing his unauthorized integration, and then having a dramatic rebirth of the product where the true premium features were finally unveiled, making his stolen ones look like basic perks. A dramatic narrative arc, satisfying. But that felt too small, too neat. Alex, being Alex, would counter that with a witty retort about evolution, or tiered genius. He would spin it. No. The revenge needed to be complete. It needed to be tectonic. I began editing the release notes for the Tuesday launch, carefully crafting the narrative. Version 2.0, the breakthrough. Welcome to FluxFlow 2.0. We heard your feedback, and we have completely redefined what small business software can do. We believe in giving our community the full power of our platform, not just a taste. Then came the killer paragraph. The one that would make Alex choke on his artisanal coffee. In recognition of the incredible vision and relentless drive of our internal teams, especially the brilliant, tireless efforts of our co-founder, Alex Chen, we are proud to announce that the entire premium suite is now available to every single user, free of charge, forever. He didn't just steal the code, he stole the concept of exclusivity. He stole the anticipation of the premium upgrade. My response wouldn't be to fight his theft. It would be to render his theft utterly meaningless. I scrolled down, adding the specific features he'd highlighted so proudly. Now listed as standard capabilities: advanced forecasting, real-time inventory synchronization, automated client reporting, and the proprietary predictive workflow engine. And then the final, devastating blow. I added a footnote, a small, elegant piece of text placed right beneath the main feature list, designed to be the last thing the user reads before they feel satisfied. P.S. While the premium tier is now free for everyone, please note that the ultimate tier, the level Alex helped us design, remains available for those who require the truly limitless. This tier unlocks unlimited data storage, dedicated priority support, and the exclusive Quantum Insight module. Because, after all, even brilliance needs an upper limit. I hit save. The air in the room didn't just shift, it fractured. Alex had engineered the theft to establish a new baseline: free equals good, premium equals better. My response wasn't just to elevate the baseline. It was to obliterate the concept of the barrier entirely, making the entire free user base feel like they were already living in the penthouse suite. And then, I placed a new, higher, impossibly exclusive ceiling above them. He wanted to prove he could sneak in the good stuff. Fine. We threw the whole vault open for free. He wanted to make the free version irresistible. Done. We made it irresistible by making it functionally indistinguishable from the premium offering. He thought his move was a power play, a quiet grab for perceived market dominance, but in doing so, he had accidentally given me the perfect ammunition for the ultimate counterstrike. He hadn't stolen my code. He had inadvertently handed me the keys to the entire kingdom, allowing me to build a better, grander, more generous kingdom right over his sneaky little patch of grass. I leaned back one last time, feeling the tension drain out of my shoulders, replaced by a deep, satisfying warmth. The quiet returned, but this time it was the quiet of utter control. The next morning, when he saw the release notes, I could almost hear the sound of his laptop hinge creaking under the weight of his realization. He hadn't just lost the battle for the premium designation, he had been completely, utterly subsumed by my generosity. His triumphant little theft had been retroactively rebranded as a foundational gift to the entire community. When he finally messaged me later that afternoon, it wasn't the breezy confidence. It was a short, almost breathless message. "Mark, you didn't just give it away. You just leveled up the entire damn thing. Quantum insight. Seriously, that's insane." I took a slow sip of my now perfectly brewed, non-instant coffee. I felt the lingering buzz of adrenaline finally settling into a steady, righteous hum. "It's not charity, Alex," I typed back, watching the green indicator light blink, confirming his read receipt. "It's strategic realignment. You stole the trophy. But you forgot to realize that the trophy was merely a symbol. The real value is the entire, massive, gorgeous stadium it sits in." "So," he typed, a new tone creeping in, a mixture of awe and dawning defeat. "What now?" I looked back at the code, at the elegant, functioning lines of our application. Lines that now bore the indelible mark of his ambition and my meticulous response. "And now," I typed my final words to him, the mic dropping on the entire saga, "we launch. And the world gets to see what happens when someone tries to sneak in the good stuff, only to find out the entire house is already on fire with brilliance."